of July 6th to order. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, you want to lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance for the flag to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. Michelle, you want to lead our moment of silence?
I would like to do that. Thank you, David. I'd like everyone to just consider all of our first responders that are currently working down in Surfside, Florida, at the tragedy that occurred down there. Keep them in our thoughts and prayers, as well as our public works team, again, jumping into action and saving buildings and lives. And thank you for that.
Thanks, Michelle. And I will announce that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. The chairman's report, this will be the last Zoom meeting of the Board of Supervisors. We had previously decided that we were going to meet every other meeting on Zoom and then in person because there were some uncertainty as to some of the COVID situations, but we made a decision that from here on out, we're going to be in person. Second thing is the hearing on the pipeline awareness ordinance that was scheduled to be considered on tonight's meeting will actually be scheduled to be discussed in the in-person board meeting on July 20th, the next board meeting.
Anybody hear me now?
Yep. I'm Marty.
Sorry, folks.
That's all right. Hi, Marty.
I called in a day, then forgot about it. David, it's nice to get old. You can blame it on
we
being
started.
old.
We're on item 6. No public hearings
Brian
tonight.
down there, Brian all smiley down there.
Emergency services. We have no reports. We're not seeing a financial report tonight, so we're down to approving the minutes and the treasurer's report. The minutes to be approved are the long-range budget meeting minutes of June the 8th and the Board of Supervisors meeting of June the 15th. Someone want to make a motion? Michelle, you're on mute.
I was going to say I was trying to make a motion. Actually, I would like to make a motion to accept both the June 8th and long-range planning session, as well as the June 15th draft minutes from the Board of Supervisors meeting on June 15th.
I'll second that.
I have a correction.
Okay.
It's an addition. It was really nice to see Eric Meyer, one of our Conservancy members, in attendance. And in the past, when one of our ABC members have been present, we usually include them as present. Is that something that we can amend, David, or is that something?
Which meeting?
For the June 15th.
The 15th meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we normally do that if an ABC member is present?
When ABC members are present, yeah, we do list them at the top. That was probably just an oversight.
Okay.
I can make that change.
So that's
Okay.
Eric should be there.
And then we'll make sure to take note of who all's in attendance here from our ABCs this evening too, I guess. Forward. I didn't know if that was.
I'll accept that that revision and keep my second for approval of the minutes.
Okay. All right. Are there any other corrections, comments? Any corrections or comments from the public? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. The treasurer's report. Is Dave on?
You're muted, Dave. I did see, yeah, yes. He's on.
Yes, sir. I'm on.
There you're on. Okay. You're on the second screen. You want to go ahead and make comments about any comments you want to make about the treasurer's report?
Sure. Not too much out of the ordinary. This was, we did see some more transfer tax come in. We had 3 properties, single home dwellings, over $1 million each sell. That was big. We had 19 multifamily properties, and the Swiss Farms commercial property sold for the second time. So that helped us out.
Who bought that, Dave? Dave, who bought?
I'm not sure who bought the Swiss Farms. I can find that out for you.
I'd be curious.
Other than that, we did have our Goshen fire reimbursement, which is why our total other revenue looks so high. And we did have 4,000 in parks and recreational revenue from various camps, summer programs, the Applebrook golf outing signups, and the art walk. So that was nice to see. And then our general funds payroll was higher than normal due to a retirement payout in June. Other than that, the capital reserve fund included $35K for a replacement trailer. I'm not sure if Mark wanted to comment on what we ended up getting for our existing one that we were putting up. It seemed like the bidding was going up, which was a nice.
Yeah, we're up to 11,600.
Nice.
Great. That's great.
That's all I have, sir.
Good. All right. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.
Someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we graciously accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure register and as summarized in the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Any
I
questions?
have just one question I wanted to ask. A pretty simple one. Batch 2 of 10, page 9 under sewer. The DEP related spray application report for Applebrook. It's not a largest sum of money, $1,700. Is that a reimbursable? Do we get reimbursed for that, or is that on us because of our being a co-permittee, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's on us because that's our secondary disposal site. So we have dump out of the Ridley Creek, and then we use that basin as a second.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Just curious. That's all I have.
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I wanted to add was we did have a nice, very nice party for our retiree, Mr. Rick Smith. And that shows up on the treasurer's report. It's actually offset by $1,000 received from donations. Just wanted to point that out.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Thanks, Dave.
you bet.
We have mystery donors. Okay. Any comments from the public regarding the treasurer report?
Would just like to remind the public during the meeting, if you need to raise your hand, you hit *9 in order to raise your hand to make a comment. We have one
Okay,
comment.
hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
There was-
William Caproni has a question. He raised his hand.
Okay. William, you have a question?
William,
You
yeah,
have to unmute yourself. There you go.
My question was the party that you had for the retiree. Why is that funded by the township and not funded by the people themselves? That should be should not be funded by the East Goshen Township.
Appreciate your comment, Mr. Capone. That's a discretionary item that the board agreed was a reasonable expenditure. We tried to manage the cost of it. The net cost was about $4,000. And after an employee of the nature of Mr. Smith, after 52 years, felt that was a reasonable opportunity to thank him, bring people together who have known him quite well over a generation or more. We've had former supervisors there. So it was a discretionary item that we felt was within the bounds.
I disagree with that.
That's fine. We agree to disagree.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for your comment. Any other public comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Under old business, we're going to consider the proposal from Gannett Fleming for the third time. Derek, you want to take us through where we are right now so we can.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. So yes, this is the third time this is before us. This is actually still the second rendition of this, because what I had to do was just clarify a few things on the virtual rate. And again, this is for Gannett Fleming's Milltown Dam Park project. This is specifically for bid services and construction services as the project takes hold here and gets underway. So the 820 for the virtual hour meeting, and I say hour like that, specifically, and I probably should have had this answer last time when it was asked, it's not just an hour. What it is it's taken into account 3 professionals for preparation and then the meeting, and then after the fact for questions, comments, and then back and forth with staff, as well as writing the minutes. So there is about 8 to 10 hours of work built into the virtual 1 hour meeting. And that was clarified for me by Eric from Gannett Fleming. I think that was the last main outstanding question that was brought up before the board. Now the rates are in the back to attachment A. You see on the very back of the proposal, there's one other option that was thrown out to me to go to a straight rate time and material basis. I would rather stick with the setup that we have and that we were doing with the Hershey's Dam in order to gauge a little bit more of the expenses going forward, rather than just do a straight time and materials based on the actual rates for the specific professionals. So that was the clarification. I will say I've been working with Eric and Gannett on the Hershey's Mill Dam, and their services on this one will be similar, if not identical. And they've been very responsive for the one they're already working on and overseeing it and doing a good job. So that was, I think, the final, again, outstanding comment from the board, and I'd be happy to take any additional questions. Otherwise, there is a motion.
Derek, can I add something for the motion?
Sure, absolutely.
What we've been doing at Hershey Mill is I stop up on a daily basis, take the pictures, forward them off to Eric so he can see what's going on. And then, like Derek said, if something comes up, we do the virtual and we don't have to pay for him to come down here. So it's actually cheaper and it's working out well. So I come in the loop every day.
I saw they anticipated 20 in-person meetings and 60 virtual meetings. That seemed like a lot. Is that realistic, or?
I don't think we'll have that many, but with this contractor, it was kind of difficult trying to get things figured out. That's why we stuck with the virtual.
I also think that's based on every 2 weeks, David. And I think we kind of agreed, Eric and I, to keep it at once a month, see how the project's going. But as Mark said, if there's a different person that actually gets the work, I think you'll see less of a need for meetings as well. So.
Okay. Someone want to make a motion and we can discuss it.
Yeah, let's see, I would move that we accept the revised June 9th, 2021 proposal from Gannett Fleming for bid and project coordination services in the amount of $212,240 for tasks 1, 2, and 3, and not to exceed $72,200 for task 4, and not to exceed $154,700 for task 5. That totals somewhere in the immediate vicinity of $439,140.
I would second that.
All right, further discussion from the board.
All my questions were answered. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Michelle. John, any?
It's I'll simply say it's an expensive service to the citizen who tunes in, but this is an important project. Had we not gone this route of partially breaching the dam The indication was from the Army Corps of Engineers and DEP that we were going to have probably significant more expense to restore the dam to its full integrity, and longer term expenses down the road than the likely improvements we're going to have, particularly with the Army Corps changing their regulations over time and maybe requiring more stringent standards. The objective and the goal of the Army Corps in this recent years and going forward is to eliminate as many of these secondary and tertiary dam structures that are no longer serving a utilitarian purpose to restore the natural environment, the original stream, the environment, the bio and flora environment around it. And we think this was a smart project. The construction costs anticipated, which will include some improvements to the dam to create a park opportunity and recreation setting. Those funds were secured as part of our bond issue back in 2019, 18, I think it was. So the funds for the construction are set aside, and I know we have some substantial grant funds attendant to this that Derek or Mark or
Jason.
Can comment, or Jason. I'm not sure Jason's with us tonight, but we so that's a little bit of a snapshot of a background on this rather pricey service. But Gannett Fleming is a known quantity for us. They are a quality engineering firm, and they know the work that we've been doing and are been fully engaged all along.
David, this is Marty.
Marty.
I've been around a long time, and this project has whiskers on it. I think that we better, it would be appropriate to put as much information on the website for these people to down that neck of the woods can understand where we are, because that place has been a mess for at least 2 years.
Yeah, Marty, that's a good idea. Good update. I think that would be good to put on the website, Derek, if you and Jason and Mark and company can, give some briefs about cost, anticipated improvements, throw the illustration back up as to what the intent is over the next 2 or 3 years, because that's about how far we are out, folks, probably 2 to 3 years before it starts to take shape.
Or we can come up with something.
For those that weren't around when we did this, decided to do this, this is about a 19-acre pond or facility, and it's going to be beautiful when it's all said and done. Now, the problem is it doesn't get all done in one year. It takes several years to get it to where it's going to be. But the simple fact of the matter is it's much bigger than Hershey's Mill, and it's going to be one that's probably used by virtually everybody.
And the only other comment I would make, and complimentary to the project and the Army Corps of Engineers indications for removing these dams ideally, is that under the DEP MS4 municipal stormwater system, I forget what the fourth MS is, municipal stormwater systems.
So separate stormwater
systems. We get some substantial credit for those, and we're fortunate relative to some other municipalities that under the stringent regulations of the DEP, municipalities are scrambling to try and find credits and either retrofitting basins, et cetera, to get the appropriate credits to meet the MS4 permit requirements for each respective municipality. So there's a real benefit there that also is a defers cost for associated with this project. So that's another element I include. I'll be included in the summary, I'm sure, as well.
Thanks, Mike. Any other comments from the board members? Comments from the public on the motion to approve this contract?
Christina has a hand up. David?
Hi, Christina.
Hi, thank you. I just had one quick comment. I've been reading the documentation on the website about the Milltown Dam project, and I noticed that tomorrow, I believe, is the closing date for public comments if anybody wanted to make a comment on the Army Corps permit. And also, there is a mechanism, it seems, to request a public meeting or a public hearing. I don't know if maybe the township was interested in perhaps inviting the Army Corps to come out and kind of what you were just saying, Mike, maybe to explain the ins and outs of what this project is and why they want these dams to kind of go away, and the credit system, because it's a lot of information to absorb.
Yes.
And I was just thinking, kind of like what Marty said, the more information that's presented out there to the township, maybe the better people might have the opportunity to understand it. I know I was wading through it, and I was even thinking to myself, I might have to drive over there just to kind of get a more clearer picture of exactly which wetlands were being affected. But I just thought that maybe a meeting just on this, a town meeting, might be helpful. That's my comment.
That's a really good point, Christina. And maybe Derek or staff can invite the Army Corps. We could set up a kind of a public open meeting, one item, put them front and center to give some explanation, and then would have the staff available to answer questions as to our workings. That's not a bad idea at all, and whether it occurs in a couple months or later on in the fall, as the Army Corps might be receptive. I think it's still informative, because this is a long-term plan. That's a lot of money, and it would be good to, as Marty said, it does have whiskers on it. It's been underway for a long time, and now that we're starting to really move towards implementation of the plan and construction, probably starting next year, I'm going to guess it'd be a good refresher, and to hear it from the Army Corps themselves. I think that's a great idea if we can pull something off like that.
For Derek's benefit, I would suggest that he have a timeline prepared on what's going to happen and when.
Yeah, he can probably update the one that we have as well. I mean, he's got a baseline to work with, and there'll probably be some refreshment. But yeah, I think that's good stuff, Christina. Good idea.
If you look on page 3 of the public notice from the Army Corps, it explains how you can make a request for a meeting with them. So it's David Kaplan. I've talked to him a number of times about other issues, and he's the person in charge of this region.
See, kind of the public relations, public information entity.
No, he's a senior biologist there at the Army Corps, and I've talked to him about Mariner issues. I've emailed with him about Mariner issues. I think he's like the Southeast regional Pennsylvania guy.
Yeah, let's see if we can tap somebody like that and have them come out and share with us all. And we'll learn more as well as the board and other interested ABCs. That's good stuff. Good, thank you.
We can volley that firmly back into Derek's court, and we'll follow up on that.
I would like to. I would definitely like to talk to Gannett Fleming and the Army Corps and see when they think the timing would be best for something like that, depending on how the project is scheduled, to Marty's point. So
good.
We'll be back in touch.
Yeah, good. We have an open motion.
Another hand.
There's another hand. Yes. Caller with phone number ending in 042. You have your hand raised. Can you please state your name?
Hi, yeah, this is Cody Bright, 1331 Park Avenue. And I just want to thank the board for moving forward on this. I know myself, my wife, along with my neighbors, are really excited about this project, getting underway. And I also second Supervisor Shane's comment about making that public a little bit easier on our website. And a lot of my neighbors keep asking me about it. And so I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Any other public comment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. We have a plethora of new business.
Can you spell that, David?
Yeah, no, I can't.
H-O-R-A.
N-E-W.
A-L-O-T.
No.
The second item is discuss and consider the Sustainability Advisory Committee proposal survey regarding single-use plastics. Some background, state had a moratorium when they were doing a financial impact review, which they never did. The city of Philadelphia and several other municipalities and government entities have decided to move ahead with the single-use plastic bans in their communities. I think Christy Marshall is on the line, and she may want to give us some background to this.
David, are we
David,
doing?
after we finish this item, let's come back to item A too, which is the Futures Committee survey results. That was on the
I'm
bottom of the
sorry.
first page.
I apologize. In fact,
That's all right. You know, it was the end of the page, and I just want to make sure we come back to that one.
or we could do that first, actually. Let's go ahead and just go back in order. Review the results of the digital survey. I thought it was fascinating as I went through some of the results and then some of the deep dive into some of the demographics, and so it's very interesting. So who is going to
Probably be Brandon.
Brian and I are here. Happy to
Brandon's
answer
on,
questions.
right?
Brendan, you're on there.
Yeah, happy
Where's
to answer
Brandon?
questions and walk through parts of it if helpful to clarify anything.
Brendan, you want to introduce yourself again, just so everyone on the call knows who you are?
Sure. Brandon Groff, I'm on the Futurist Committee. I work for a company that programs custom surveys, so I was able to lend a hand on this project. And yeah, happy to answer questions, or I'm happy to walk through the slides if helpful, but I know it's a lot of information and content. So
Brandon, first of all, thank you very much. Of course, the Futurist Committee as a body, but you're really kind of stretching yourself out there to provide what essentially turns out to be gratis services of a very high caliber and professional deliverable that we have here. Clearly, had we got engaged a consultant to do this, it would have been a number of thousands of dollars. So it was, there's no expectation to kind of continue to drain you of your life's blood on this, but it was a wonderful thing you were able to do and engage. But I think what this survey has done as a foundation, it's given us a base, not just of data and information, but as to the manner in which we may be able to pick up from the way you've laid it out and kind of duplicate that going forward, which is the intent of the Futurist Committee and with the oversight of the board for various topical or issue-based surveys going forward. So this is a great start. Your efforts, of course, again, the entire Futurist Committee, but again, with your professional background and the resources you brought to bear to the township, that's great public service. And on behalf of the board, I want to thank you for that before we got into any details of any of the data or reporting.
Mike, I think that Brandon will probably tell you that the thing that was the most rewarding to them is they got a turnout far in excess of what they thought they were going to get.
Yeah, 600 responses. That comes to what, about 8% of the total population? I don't know.
3%.
How much?
3.
But as a percentage of households, I guess we're a little bit higher.
Yeah, you're talking percent of doors.
Right.
That's
I think when we laid this out, 500 was on the high side of our expectations. So seeing even exceeding that was really, especially since it's the first survey, I think it really sets a precedent for what the township could achieve if you also consider to continue this type of function in the future.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Brandon said, he could walk you through this. There's a lot of slides here. There's probably too much to go through the whole meeting. There's probably a couple of key takeaways that he could hit on, so you can really see those specific results that kind of stand out in the survey. He's got a great summary of next steps and how to improve it for the future. So I think it's the flow is up to you all what you want to see.
Well, a little background, a brief synopsis would be great, Brian and Brandon. I guess one of the questions I have before you would do that is based, and David and I had shared comment that, I wanted to dig into this, immerse myself a little bit more in some of the detail. Do you see the Futurist Committee doing a little bit more mining of this report to see if, to have a second look, third look, and see if there's some other indicators, some correlations, et cetera, that are of interest as you guys go about your work? Or do you feel like you pretty much got the results out and then we kind of jump from here as to what looks like to be the future of next surveys?
I think we did a good bit of that. I mean, certainly if there's other suggestions for ways to look at the data that we haven't thought about,
okay,
we'd be open to that. But
Yeah.
there's a lot that I, for example, looked at or cut the data in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it didn't really turn up anything, so I didn't include it.
All right, good. Thanks for that.
Didn't really need it.
Yeah, Mike, I think to your point, I think the results that we see, they're not necessarily actionable for policy changes, but I think this gives you a roadmap into what things could you drill on in another survey. There's a couple of things maybe that come together and you could deep dive into that to get something a little more actionable than for the board and other surveys.
Do you think that the Futurist Committee, that might be another form of mining to refine it and say, here are 4 or 5 topical areas that may have come out of this that you might want to think about?
Yeah.
Here's where our interests lie. The board may have a different interest of this list that we compiled, and we'll continue to work together and see where we go. That might be something that will be helpful, Brian and Brandon.
Right.
Sure.
Yep.
I have to say,
Brandon,
yeah, good.
the net promotion seemed kind of significant, right? So we got a 63, and that looked like it was higher than every other benchmark industries. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. So I was trying to find municipal benchmarks, which I wasn't really able to easily find for Net Promoter Score, so I had to use industry benchmarks. I used to work at Comcast, which I think when I was there initially, the NPS was about a 0, and I think it moved up, but not anywhere near where this township is. So just to give you a point of reference. So yeah, as a township, we have fantastic loyalty. Yeah, I mean, I think that speaks very highly overall of as a report card for this township.
That's good. That's nice to hear.
I have to chime in. I like the numbers, and so based on assuming about 18,500 residents, we got a 3% response.
Michelle, you can't count that there 18,000 includes babies. Babies aren't going to fill out a survey. You got to count doors.
So which
And
doors
so we
are
have,
That's why I was thinking households might be a better indicator, even though 2 people from the same household could have responded, but.
So what are the households that we were looking at?
yeah,
We
it's
have
more
like
like 9.
300. Derek, do you know that number yet? Or Dave, you guys are both new, so you may not know that household number. I thought we were somewhere. Well, Mark, as an example, what's the number of our sewer customers?
We up to, I couldn't give you an accurate one off the top of my head.
But it's
I think it's close to 8,000 from next door. Hold on, I can check that out.
But
This
at
is
any
one
rate-
of those moments where you miss Rick's
Well,
50-year
sure.
knowledge.
I'm going to guess we're in the neighborhood of something like 7,500 households.
Yeah, 75 to 8,000 in there.
Yeah, I think we're around 8,000.
Okay, still, okay, so around 8,000. I think that 8,000 is probably close, Dave,
That's about 8%. Then.
but still, just
7.5.
still, it's interesting to see what was most important and what was least important. On my percentage, the number that I used, the 18,500, still 9% of the people thought less development was important to them. They don't want to see the development. 6% were all pro trail. 1% was anti-trail. 3% want more shopping and restaurants. 4% were hot about the pipeline, and 1% were annoyed about roads, and 1% want to see more open space. So based on my numbers, those are the percentages I came to based on my number. And I was happy to see that there was at least a lot of praise to the township. I think that what was nice to see was people identify with being an East Goshen resident, not a Westchester resident, but an East Goshen Township resident. And they have high praise for the township. I think that that's fantastic.
Those are good observations, Michelle.
That was really interesting. That younger people, this was a great place to retire. They, more than people who were retired, thought it was a great place to retire.
Right.
That's a fascinating statistic.
It was really interesting. Yeah.
We got to figure out what.
Interesting perspective.
So
I
David,
know is in fact youth wasted on the young? I hope not.
David, just a little tidbit from Susan. According to the next door map, there are 8,294 households in East Goshen Township.
Okay, 294. It's okay. Michelle's numbers are okay as long as she's using the same denominator.
Yeah, that
So,
translates to about 7.4%, which is if you go use
Yeah.
households with the number. So
Right,
that's
roughly.
Right.
Yeah. Like I said,
Well-
using my number, it was still, it's
yeah.
interesting stuff. I like the
I think it's
numbers.
a great start, and Futures Committee, again, plaudits and applause for you guys. That was a lot of work, and you've got a good track record now and a good base that we'll be able to work with you. And let's see what you think about some topics to pursue from here, from your perspectives. I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Topics, Mike, and also ways to get more people involved in the survey.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great too. I mean, getting people involved to in any aspect of the municipal government, it's always an objective, I think, for any municipality. And we've got a pretty good participatory citizenry here, but it still is a small number. But, you know, people have busy lives. And while there are some topics that folks have different perspectives on, overall, I think the quality of the township is showing relative to the fact that we don't have 500 residents at every meeting asking, you know, where the money is and you scoundrels type of thing. So we've got very, very positive operations, and that's the legacy of management and the staff over the years, because we may come and go as a board, but the staff, they many of them, as we know, just retired. They're here for a generation or two or more. Marty is an exception. Don't say anything, Marty, but Marty's an exception. He's disappeared anyway from the screen, so I don't know where he is.
Hey,
Thanks very much, guys.
Brendan, can you talk from your experience about survey responses and statistical credibility?
Yes.
What your expectation would be?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you typically do in a survey where you're paying people to take the survey is you want to ensure that the demographics of the people taking the survey matches the demographics of the broader population you're trying to draw conclusions about. And so the one slide in this presentation shows both the demographic breakdown of people that actually took the survey versus our township demographics from the 2019 census data that I pulled from the census website. You can see, so the one caveat or difference here is that we're not paying people to take the survey. We don't want to turn away people from providing their feedback on the township. So there's the chance for more representation or less representation from certain demographic groups. I've highlighted those in that slide. I think it's slide 29 in the presentation you're looking at. We were slightly underrepresented on the lower end of the age spectrum. So the 25 to 34 age group was on the low end. We didn't get anybody below that in terms of age taking the survey, and also slightly underrepresented on the lower end of the income scale as well. In order to, I would say, and the reason, I should say, the reason you do this is to make sure that you are not underrepresenting or overrepresenting any of these groups, right? You don't want to muffle out the voice of the low income resident because only a few took the survey and it was mostly higher income. And so to balance that out, I cut a lot of this all of this information across these major demographic groups. So I looked at it across ages, across income breakdowns as well. So, for example, I had a personal question of, would lower income residents feel very strongly that affordable housing was really important, right? And so I specifically wanted to go look at that and see if that was the case. It turned out it wasn't really any different by income. And so it turned out it didn't really vary by income, but we want to make sure that we look at these, these ratings and these most important and least important across those age groups and income groups to make sure that everybody's voice is being represented in this conversation. So all that to say, we did that. There isn't really a huge variation amongst income groups for most of this stuff. The detail is there if you want to look at it. There's some small ones, but there's nothing glaring. There's no, aha, we missed this smoking gun kind of thing. So, but feel free to take a look at it. It's all there and in detail.
Well, thanks, Brandon, and thanks, Brian. And please pass on to Tom and company for their work, the other members on the Futurist Committee, and we'll be in touch. So you be in touch.
What's the plan as far as publicizing the results? And one of the things I saw was that our paper newsletter is the most popular communication. So, are we planning on doing any kind of summary of the information? I think a high level summary of this would be really nice to have in the next newsletter.
Good idea.
Yeah, I agreed. I would like to publish at least some of this, probably on the website. The newsletter would be great as well.
No reason we couldn't publish the entire report, though, right? There's no hesitancy there. It's a public document, so let people have at it if they look at it, and they may get some other people looking and saying, what about this? What about that? That'd be cool.
Yeah, that was actually a question I had, is if this is okay. The only thing I wasn't entirely sure about, I reviewed all of those written in responses that are pages and pages of the information here. There's nothing that is personally identifiable in any of that, as far
No, I
as
didn't see it either. That'd be a place to look, though, Brandon, if publishing the whole report, to make sure that there's nothing confidential. It shouldn't be, but I didn't see anything myself.
I think publishing the entire report on the website is absolutely doable. To David's point, I think it's too much information for a newsletter page or blurb. So that's where they might want to condense some of the information to a high level.
Yeah, I think a high level overview of it would be great. And then just the details on the website. I think we need to do that.
All right, great.
The whole thing is published now, right? Because it's in the agenda for this meeting.
Yeah, it's a public document.
It's already out there.
That is correct. Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks, guys, very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Next is the discussion on the Sustainability Advisory. Speaking of surveys regarding the single-use plastic, and I think Christy Marshall is going to give us some background on that.
Well, thank you for going back to the original order, because it was extremely helpful to hear Brandon and Brian's explanation of that survey. And what we're proposing is something really quite different. It is very focused, just really barely a handful of questions with an actionable goal in mind, to use, Brandon's phrase. And that is to glean some information from our residents, so that we can take that information to our businesses in order to encourage them towards a single-use plastic ban, rather than, the carrot, the stick approach. We're very aware of how difficult the year of COVID has been. We don't want to dream of placing any undue burden on any of our businesses at this time. So we'd much prefer to get there incrementally with the carrot. And you all may be aware there are presently 6 states, and New Jersey's about to join them, who have already statewide issued a single-use plastic ban. One of them is Delaware, our neighbor, and New Jersey's joining. New York is already on board. And that's in addition to entire countries. And there are a number of townships. You've heard the story. David told you about Philadelphia. So what we're proposing, and I'm just going to very quickly outline, this is part of a longer range schema that our committee would like to implement with your approval. And so this first is meant information gathering, a very brief survey, just to make sure that we understand how seriously our residents take the issue of single-use plastic. And the second stage would be that information sharing. So we would then go to our businesses and take this and ask them a number of questions one-on-one. And with those results, we'd like to encourage them to make the transition to a more sustainable program for their businesses. And one of the ways we can do that is to provide awards, and they can use as displays in their windows or their websites. We can promote them through our own website. We can, send information to the paper, et cetera, write articles for the newsletter. And the fourth, what our committee would like to do is to activate, maybe at the end of the year or the beginning of next year, an expo for our businesses and a separate one for our residents. The one for the businesses would then hopefully provide products and services that will give them the specific tools they need to make this transition as economically and usefully as possible. So that's why we gave you some examples where we'd like to use this title, Sustainable Storefronts, but not call it Westchester area, call it the East Goshen Sustainable Storefronts. And ours would be very different than the borough is initiating. But I gave you some samples, and Jason will work with us for graphics, et cetera. So because I did not realize before we made this motion that there may be follow-up surveys coming following the heels of the outstanding work that the Futurist Committee has just done. So we can amend the motion that's already about to be proposed by Michelle to only ask for a survey, again, very brief, over SurveyMonkey, no cost to the township. It's not comprehensive. It's just designed to get us to the next stage, to have one-on-one conversations with our businesses. And by the way, we would specifically not approach the businesses in the business park because we know that you have a committee already working on that. So we would not approach them, at least initially. But if we just do a survey to the residents, and then we don't even need to send a survey to the businesses, we'll just begin calling them, making scheduled appointments, because it's, a couple of dozen businesses that we're talking about here. So if you would prefer that we just get approval for one, we wanted the residential one to go out first. So I hope I've given a little additional information. Can I answer any questions?
No, I think your angle of approach, Christy, is a really good one. And the analogy of the carrot and the stick is very applicable. You're sensitive to where we've been this past year. I support it, and I support your approach. I think it was well thought out, and the construction of the survey and the outreach seems really good. So you gave I think a very cogent presentation as far as I'm concerned.
So it's no cost. It's a hand questions, and SurveyMonkey will be the vehicle that you're going to use. Is that
correct?
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, should I make a motion to have the Sustainability Advisory Committee send out the residential single-use plastic survey? That I should do at this time?
I'll second that. If that's the motion, Michelle, I'll second that.
I believe so, because you've decided, Christy, you don't need to do the commercial end of things.
Well, I'm asking that. I'm happy if we want to leave that,
incremental
out of the motion, considering what the next steps may be. And it's really not that necessary. We can reach the businesses directly without sending them a survey first. And Jason will be the facilitator we won't do this without Jason. It'll all, it'll go through the office.
Okay.
Okay, then I'll make the motion that the Sustainability Advisory Committee send out the residential single-use plastic survey as noted above, with the option of sending out a commercial survey at a later date if it is deemed necessary at that time.
I'll second that. Good motion.
Any other discussion from board members? Any members of the public comment on the motion?
I don't see any, David.
Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No,
Motion carried.
no.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a 3-1 to
None.
None.
Marty's not here. I don't know where Marty went to.
it passes 3-1.
3-1.
He's probably asleep, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know where he disappeared to, John.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a discussion on the allocation of the federal COVID-19 relief funds. Derek, you want to give us a little background, or the public some background that we have so far to date?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to start, the federal government passed earlier this year coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery relief funds for the COVID-19 pandemic for state and local governments to use in very specific ways. May 17th was the interim final rule on the recovery funds. That's 89 pages, so I did not attach that. But I did give a fact sheet and some brief overview in my memo to kind of allow us to see what specifics the relief funds are allowed to be used for. Now, East Goshen is due to get 1.899 million. So half of that is actually I know Dave Ware was waiting anxiously the last couple of days to see if the half of that would be hitting our bank account. It was due to hit the bank account June 30th. It has not as of today. Dave, I don't know if there's an update on that as to whether or not we received it late today, but I don't believe so. So anyway, this is really just a discussion point Dave and I wanted to put in public. There's not a lot of need to spend a lot of time on it right now. We did want to get it before the board, though, have you all thinking about, what you personally would like to see the township spend this money on. I think perhaps the best approach may be to have a conversation with the board members individually, maybe get some lists of what you're all thinking so we can cross-reference what each board member is thinking. And obviously, we're going to have to bring this back in public for a vote at some point when it's all decided and we get enough feedback from the board. So again, there's no motion on the table tonight. We simply, with the funds being dispersed, half of them very, very soon, we wanted to get this in front of the board and let you know, this is coming down the pike here, and we need to really think about what you as a body would like to see these funds dispersed for. So thanks.
I just have an overview just for everyone in the public's edification. And we're facing somewhere north of $2 million of improvements, infrastructure improvements are going to be necessary for our sewer system in East Goshen, two large projects that we're aware of already. And so, that already exceeds the amount that we're going to get on COVID relief. That, if we spend those funds from our regular reserves, it would impact pretty significantly the sewer rates going forward. And so we have to think about that. But I was wondering, as we were talking about MS4 and the dams, if that qualifies for MS4 relief, could it also qualify for an investment in water, sewer, and infrastructure? So does that qualify as water?
So that was a big conversation when the initial language first came out, as it broadly said sewer, water, and broadband. So when we honed in on it and we started asking a lot of questions, and Dave and I have both sat on some webinars. We've done a lot of research. I've talked to other managers within the county. Stormwater projects such as MS4 projects look to qualify for these funds. So that would be a way to go. You raise an interesting point because it sounds like a lot of money, but there really is no shortage of projects that this could be used for. So I guess it's a good news situation where you don't have to do too much hard exercise of mental gymnastics to come up with a lot of different projects that the township could benefit from these funds. So, but to answer your question, stormwater projects would qualify under the current language.
I'll simply say, here's my comment at this point in time, Derek and colleagues, that as I've read the various eligibility projects, at least in the summary presented to us, I've read it a couple of times with regard to infrastructure. The looks to me with federal dollars, the cleanest, simplest ones, which we have the greatest need for, were the ones that David mentioned. More specifically, folks that are listening, both related to sewer. One of them is an emergency repair project that showed itself last year in the north part of the township. We're probably looking anywhere between $600,000 and $900,000 for some emergency repair there. That emergency as it is, it's still, we have to go through wetland studies, et cetera, to get clearance, and it's going to take some months, but the system is patched together for the time being. That's an emergency one that came up rather unexpectedly, but it's part of the ongoing due diligence that the staff does with televising the system and checking it. So that's one project, sewer related. The other is related to the Westtown Pump Station, which it's a bit of a misnomer, but the Westtown Pump Station is our key pump station that takes a lot of our effluent, up to 1 million gallons per day, to West Goshen Township. And we have an agreement with West Goshen Township for the respective percentages of ownership responsibility of that pump station. It's a major redo of the pump station. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow night with the municipal authority for West Goshen, our municipal authority, and representatives from the respective boards for West Goshen and East Goshen to discuss this project. We've had cost overruns in it. It's gone on for several years. We've got to get it nailed down, if you will. And the funds, as it was just said, it's $1.89 million or whatever the number is, but these two projects could eat that up effectively. And when I look at the number of sewer customers we have that really pervade the township, but with the exception of a few neighborhoods in the entire township, that would be the cleanest, most effective use of the funds. And as David alluded, if we had to use our capital reserve fund in the sewer, which is a segregated capital fund, it's an enterprise fund, so it's separate from our general fund. If we had to use our capital funds to pay for these two projects, essentially the capital reserve fund for sewer will be depleted, and it will have an impact on rates. So this could be a very important lifeline, if you will, to get these two projects effectively completed with unexpected dollars and keep a stabilization of our rates, which we just underwent I think a 5.9% increase anyway. So that's my thoughts. I have nothing else I can offer you, Derek, on it. Stormwater's important, but these two I think are the most important from my perspective as one supervisor.
I was going to say what Mike just said, only I was going to say it very shorter than that. I want to add for people to know that neither project that we're talking about is budgeted. Indeed, they would heavily cut into our reserves. One thing I would like to say, as soon as we get this money, we should make a decision what to do with it. And I would, although I'm cheap, I would spend a couple bucks and make sure that our use of the money is approved by our legal team. because if they change the rules, which they often do in government, we can go back and say, at the time, we had a legal opinion that clearly said what we want to do is the right thing to do.
Yeah, and it appears these funds will be audited, so we've got to make
Yeah,
sure
no
that
doubt.
we're crossing T's and dotting the
Good
i's.
points, John.
All right, any other comments on this? This is just discussion right now. There's no motion to consider. So with that, we'll move on to the next item. And that is just a brief discussion and consideration of the COVID safety protocols that we have a draft of from Derek. Basically, Derek, you want to just give a quick background and see if anyone has any comments? I don't have any comments.
Yes, another fun COVID topic. So, we're sort of touching on this every few weeks. And I know we talked about it in May, I believe, when I was still fairly new regarding safety protocols and where we are. And we were discussing it then in the context of meetings. I wanted to have a brief discussion because, as I think everybody has seen in the county, we are at a point where lots of people that are vaccinated are not wearing masks indoors. If you go to grocery stores, Wawa, wherever you may go. So we wanted to get feedback from the board basically on two issues. One, wearing of masks in the office for both employees and the public during regular business hours. And it was the thought, having a general discussion with department heads a couple of weeks ago, that perhaps we should consider what most people are doing right now. And if you're vaccinated, you do not have to wear a mask. And if you're not vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. And obviously, anybody who wants to wear a mask can wear a mask. So that's sort of the feedback I got from department heads. And that was the overall thinking. The second one, I guess it's a little bit more difficult of a conversation of whether or not it's time to open up the building for rentals, for room rentals, and to external groups. I know Jason and the township in general has been getting a lot of inquiries as to when we were going to open back up for that. So again, just no particular motion. It's just general feedback from the board on how you feel on these two administrative items.
Eric, I have a question.
Sure.
Do we know whether or not all of our employees are vaccinated, double vaccinated?
We know there's a great percentage. I believe not every single employee is vaccinated. No, there is a high amount of employees that are vaccinated. So I don't want to specify, but other than that, but there are, I believe there are one or two that are not vaccinated.
I would offer, well, first of all, on that comment, without undue pressure, I mean, we hear from the CDC on a regular basis and the other professionals, whether it's Dr. Fauci or whomever, you may find credibility with the science that they're trying to communicate, that what you're doing in the office is consistent presently with what I understand CDC. Anyone that's not vaccinated amongst the staff, if there's any way to try and share with them information to educate them that it's probably in their best interest, particularly as we learn about this variant, which is Delta thing, which is of concern. Number two, the second aspect of opening the building up to others, the exposure there is more to the staff than anyone else. I'm frankly, at this point in time, with what's going on with this variant, until we see how that manifests, I'm saying this as one person, I'm a little uncomfortable with opening up the building to externals more for the safety of the staff than anyone. It may require continued sanitization on a meeting by meeting, activity by activity basis. So I'm not quite comfortable with number two, but those are just my comments.
If I can just say here, as far as I'm concerned, I think that the staff in the building have been educated It's not a matter of education. It's unfortunately, it's a matter of choice, and it's a matter of each individual's health.
Yeah.
And we cannot assume that everyone has the same immuno system as everybody else. We can't assume that someone with a heart condition or potential fertility issues is going to want to take that vaccine, and it's their right to say no. It's not an FDA approved drug at this time. And as far as opening the building to outsiders, I don't see why we shouldn't. We should encourage them to wear masks while they're in the building if they're not vaccinated, and continue with the sanitation protocols, because we're running into those people, whether we like it or not, at the grocery store, at the Home Depot, out at the park, and at every party you go to now.
Yeah.
So the fact is, there are many people who are not in the position to be vaccinated. And again, that's their choice, or it might be their doctor's recommendation.
Yeah.
For any of us to assume that they're not educated. At this point, everyone has been educated. It's a matter of choice.
Yeah.
And wearing a mask is the best option to protect themselves and others. I too am concerned about the Delta variant, but I think at this point we have to just move forward with an abundance of caution. If we're concerned about our own self and our own safety, then we should go ahead and continue to mask as we go about our business.
Good points, Michelle. Then, of course, if you read a recent statistic, an announcement for us here in Chester County, recognized, if you believe the statistics, that Chester County as a county not only leads Pennsylvania in the vaccination rate of adults over 18, somewhere in the order of 94%, but throughout the country, we are one of the top counties in the entire country as far as our vaccination rate. So that's a real positive there. But Michelle, I agree with you, 100% choices really comes to the top, and I respect that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if there's no other board comments, we'll take this back and talk among the staff, and I appreciate the comments, and we'll let you know. But that's exactly what we were kind of leaning towards. So, but Mike, you are right. As of 3 weeks ago, we did lead the nation. I don't know any updates from the last couple of weeks, but that was correct. So appreciate the comments. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Next item on our new business is to consider recommendations put forth by the Pipeline Task Force from their June 10th meeting. We all have the memo. They recommended 2 draft motions. I was not able to attend that meeting. So I don't know who staff. Derek, were you?
I was there. Yes, it was myself, Rick, and Susan. So we were there. It was, and I think it looked like there was a couple people on from the Pipeline Task Force as well. But if memory serves, it was a lot of discussion about what occurred at the pump station up at West Goshen, and having to do with the communication issues, and then obviously the discussion went into the all hazards response and the issues with the all hazards response that the county has when you have a very specific pipeline hazard in East Goshen. So I can let the Pipeline Task Force speak for themselves if either one of them want to speak up, but these were the motions as we recalled.
Before we go any further, though, I was going to make a motion to table the first draft motion, because without having had this memo, I actually have a meeting scheduled next week on the 14th with the county to discuss some of these very same issues. I don't want to say, no, I don't want to do this. I just simply want to say I'd like to have the opportunity to have the meeting with Derek and Mike Murphy, Bill Turner, and yourself, if you're available.
I plan to attend that meeting as well.
Great. And so these are some of the issues that we were going to have an opportunity to discuss with them. And so I would prefer that we consider putting just that first draft motion off for the meantime. I don't know that we need to even table it if we can just delay that until next month. If we don't get the information we need, then perhaps we need to join forces and move forward together.
I would actually like to table both the motions, and for a similar reason. I happen to agree that the all hazards response is inadequate, but
Yeah.
I'd like a lot more information and a lot more interface with the Department of Emergency Services to drill down on those questions. So I also have a copy of the report from Energy Transfer on the incident, which has got some very fascinating details in it, which I plan to bring along to that meeting.
Would you be able to share that with me?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
I just got it a couple days ago, and I'll forward it to you. So I think that's so. Michelle, you make a motion to table.
I'd like to make a motion to just table both of these motions that are proposed by the task force, because of any reason that they're not excellent motions, just simply because we do have a meeting planned. So I'd make a motion to table them until after that meeting has been held and we've had an opportunity to discuss findings. Perhaps revisit it at the July 20th meeting if you're agreeable to that.
I'd second that motion.
Go ahead. Yeah. Any other board comment? Public comment?
There is none. I see none, David.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. More information. I'm supportive of the motions, but I think more information coming.
I felt the same way, very supportive, just we have more information headed our way.
As a little aside, Derek and Mark, you may know something about this. Information that at one point Energy Transfer at the site was pumping industrial drilling waste into the sewer system. And I think that stuff was being directed to West Goshen. And it was a lot of stuff. So I don't know if that's accurate or not. So I'd like somebody to look into that. It was alleged that was happening.
I can absolutely look into that. This is the first I'm hearing about it, but I can get some more accurate information for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying more accurate. That could be accurate. My apologies.
I just was
wow
out there in social media, and it raised a little red flag for me. I'd like to know if we got industrial drilling waste pumping through any of our facilities that we're involved with or contract with. Okay. This is consideration and recommendation put forth. Consider accepting a pro bono legal services from Goldstein Law Partners with respect to filing an amicus brief with the PA Supreme Court as it relates to Mariner East and the right to know. I was initially involved in this, and Derek, you've been involved in contact with the attorney, so you want to give us a little background. And I have briefed Caroline Hughes at the Pipeline Task Force about this motion that we're going to consider it this evening. So.
Sure, absolutely. So Sean Rogers and Chuhan Samahon, I apologize if I do not pronounce that right. The both attorneys at the Goldstein Law Partners in Hatfield, they had offered to represent East Goshen as legal counsel in connection with a case before the Supreme Court right now, and that would be Friedman v. PUC. So they are working on a pro bono basis for East Goshen. That means they are doing it for absolutely no cost to the township. They are limited in the scope of work in that they will draft an amicus brief and they will file it for us. So it's a very absolute straightforward, this brief they drafted, they file it for us, they do it for free. And that's the extent of the involvement, and the engagement letter sort of outlines that.
The topic of the issue with the Supreme Court is that Eric Friedman filed a right to know to really find out two things. One is what is the stated impact area, blast zone? It's been called a number of things. When the filing was made with the PUC originally to put the pipelines in, and when did the PUC know that information? It's been through the courts. It's been approved. It's been then subsequently it was not approved, then it was approved, then it was subsequently reversed by a higher court. And it's gone to the Supreme Court now. And my view of it is that this is important information for us to know. If we're going to go forward in developing evacuation plans and alert notification plans, we need to know this information. So the lawyers ask us because they want to file an amicus brief on behalf of an interested municipal entity. And we were approached because of our proactive pipeline issue. So that's
just one other note, Mr. Chairman. The gentleman in question, his resume, Villanova law professor, his lectures and presentations go on for days. So I know some people can be skeptical of a lawyer approached you wanting to file something. So I think it's important also for the public to know that they are absolute professionals, and given the gentleman's resume, they come, highly credible.
Yeah.
That's good
Well,
comment.
that's putting your neck. That's putting your neck on the line, Derek. Good.
Don't say that for all lawyers, John.
Let me say one thing, if I may. Derek, you made the point that they will write the brief and they will file the brief. In between those two things, I would like to be assured that they will send the brief to you and you will look at it before it's filed in our name.
We had discussed that already. We absolutely will look at the brief before it is filed.
Good. I'm good.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the East Goshen Township offer pro bono legal representation by Goldstein Legal Partners with regard to the PA Supreme Court Friedman v. PUC, and accept the terms and conditions to draft and submit an advocacy brief as outlined in the engagement letter.
Second.
I'll second that.
All right, John.
Thank you. Any further board comments?
No, thank you very much for that.
Any public comments?
Hi, this is Caroline Hughes, 1101 Amalfi Drive. I thought it was noteworthy to add that, first of all, thank you for considering this, but it's noteworthy to add that one of in fact, I believe the thing that prompted Eric to file that right to know came from an East Goshen public meeting in which Paul Metro, who at the time was a PUC employee responsible for gas safety, noted that the PUC knew what the blast zone was. And so this really comes down to David's point, the key piece of information for safe and responsible evacuation planning and public safety planning. And yet it also highlights the issues that we've had with transparency, both from the operator and unfortunately from our own state agencies. Yeah. So I think for a lot of reasons, this is a very important avenue to go down. And I'm really proud that East Goshen is going to be a part of it. And I think because that revelation came within East Goshen Township, it really makes even more sense for East Goshen to be an active participant in this. So thank you.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thanks, Caroline. You've been part of it, so we really appreciate it.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. 4-0. Thank you. Next issue is consideration of a board opinion on the recent zoning hearing board application at 14 Reservoir Road. This is for a zoning variance of a flag lot where our ordinance requires 40 feet of length for the pole, if you will, of the flag, and they're asking for a variance to have that pole portion to be 24 feet.
Mark is not here, Mr. Chairman, so I will take this one as well.
Okay.
And it really is just what you said. It's the pole of the flag lot, because of the constraints of the land, can only go to the allotted 26 feet instead of the 40 required by zoning. having went over this with Mark, it seems to be a pretty straightforward variance request. Down where it is being requested, there are surrounding properties which do have these flag lots in the back. They're pretty sizable lots down off of Reservoir Road there. So there's not really much to say other than that. It's the width of the pole where it enters or meets the street is not they don't have the ability to go the full 40 feet. And you can see in the drawings there, and it's kind of outlined in the memo from Mark. So not really much to add beyond that.
Okay.
Derek, if this variance relief is granted, is it creating a conforming lot or a non-conforming lot?
I believe the lot in question would be conforming, but I will check with Mark on that.
It is. It's
18,000 or something?
Yeah, it would be.
Yes. Yeah.
Before the motion's made, the board is familiar with my position on these zoning hearing board matters. I will, my position is a no position, neutral. Let the zoning hearing board use its legal minds and its discretion and its capacity and its venue to make the determination of granting variance or not. So I am neither going to support or oppose this. I again, neutral, and I let the zoning hearing board do their thing.
Okay. And just an FYI too, the homeowner appears to be on the call as well. So
Yeah.
just like that.
Mike, on this one, I'm going to agree with your position and take a no position in this. But since we've granted currently relief on 2 other properties on this issue, it begs the question: should we look at our zoning ordinance? And you know, is 40 feet onerous? Is 24 feet reasonable? So I'd push that back onto our planning commission. And,
that's a good point, David. Yeah, it's a good point, because I've written down what's the magic number with 40, what's the value of it versus something less, given the precedent that we've had at least 2 other variance reliefs on this. Flag lots are often create problematic situations, but I think that's a good one for the planning commission to take a fresh look at. Maybe consider an amendment, but I'm
just curious, are there any neighbors who are in opposition of this?
We have not heard from any neighbors from the township at this point.
Didn't we actually receive a letter at one point in support of this? Or am I thinking of a different property?
I don't know, Michelle.
You may be thinking of a different property. I asked
Mark. We gave some relief on setback on a addition on a property earlier.
I think you're right. David. I think you're right.
With all due respect, Mr. Chair, I agree with Mike on keeping our nose out of it and letting the zoning board do its job. And I also agree with both of you that instead of us or the zoning board reviewing request after request for variances from this stuff, let's look at the underlying code or ordinance or whatever the heck it is and fix it.
So can I could move that the Board of Supervisors take a position, thank you, on the application of Jeffrey Michelle Glosson at 14 Reservoir Road for relief from the flagpole width requirement of the zoning ordinance.
I'll second that.
Any further board discussion? Any comments from the public?
I see none.
Okay, hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
You did that with your mouth shut, David. That was pretty impressive.
I haven't told you about my career in bench roll.
Wow.
And next we have the Topo Giso coming on next.
Oh, you're showing your age now, Michael.
Oh man, no doubt about it.
What Giso?
The really big show.
Okay, that carries 4-0. That goes back to the zoning hearing board then. That's the right thing to do there. Next is to consider the board is to consider the replacement of the road bank mower.
I guess my only question is, what did we have budgeted for this, Mark? And was there a trade-in for another one? I forget.
We had 110,000 originally budgeted, $120,000, I'm sorry, in the budget for this. Shopped it around and I got the price from Messick's of 81,725. And of course, Stevenson. The current mower is like broken half.
Oh, okay.
I know some of the board members have seen it, but we got out of it, but the tractor's worth money. So when we put it on municipal bid, I'm going to go conservative, but I think you're going to get between $8,000 and $10,000 for it.
8,000 and 10,000. Yeah, well, that's great. Anything to offset, that's terrific. But that seems like a pretty good price relative to what you anticipated budget wise. And that mower is fully depreciated in our capital reserve schedule, right?
Oh yeah, it's totally. We got it. We definitely got our money's worth. We had it for 33 years. So
yeah, they take a beating. I know that.
Okay, the first motion is to award the purchase of the tractor road bank mower to Messick in the amount of $81,725.
Second.
Thanks, Michelle. Any further comment?
No.
Comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Second motion is to authorize the Director of Public Works to advertise on municipal bid the sale of the 1988 case tractor and road bank mower, which we believe will sell in the neighborhood of $7,500.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Okay, Mike made it. John seconded it. Any further questions, comments? Any comments from the public? I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
David, a hand went
final-
up mid-motion
Okay,
from William.
William, do you have a comment?
Were there only two bidders?
Yes.
Is that the only two you solicited or only two responses?
They're just two. I reached out to 3 and I got prices back from 2. The third bidder, he was concerned about availability. So, and I think that's why he didn't give a price.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, William. Great. All right, final new business, consider stormwater agreements for 1604 Margot Lane and 1725 Town Drive. These have been looked at by our folks and recommending that we do that. So anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, in accepting the recommendations and review by the staff, I'd move the board authorize the chair to sign the stormwater management agreement, operation maintenance agreements for 1604 Margot Lane and 1725 Town Drive.
Second.
Thank you. Any further comment from staff or the board? Any public comment?
I see none.
I'll call the question. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Anybody have any other matter at the current time? The only one I had was the question about accepting industrial drilling waste into the West Ocean pumping stations.
I have none.
I have nothing.
Okay, great. We'll open it up for public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time? Susan, you want to remind people how to make public comment?
Please hit *9 on your phone to raise your hand in order to participate in public comment. David, I see none.
Okay, there aren't any liaison reports. Correspondence, we got a very nice thank you note from Bonnie and Rick Smith for the party and the proper send off for Rick after his 52 years faithful service to the township. And we got a note from a homeowner at Grand Oak Lane.
The Diordas.
Yeah, commenting our public works folks on a water and sewer issue that cropped up on their property, and our guys are always there to take care of that stuff. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add to that real quickly, being the new manager, I was able to go out there as soon as that job happened, witness firsthand the public works, the job that they did. They got right on it. They fixed it. They stayed late to fix it. So really, really appreciate the work that they do for the township. And now that I'm seeing it firsthand, I appreciate it even more what Mark and his group do. So I just wanted to acknowledge them publicly.
Thanks, Derek. Back to our survey results.
Could I actually, if I can tag on to that, Mark, what Derek said, but also, can you explain what happened? Because I think people should understand where the problem developed.
Sure. They put new water mains in on Grand Oak Lane this past summer. And when the guys were digging for the fire hydrant, they hit the lateral for that property, not knowing it. And then when they backfilled their hole, they broke the pipe. And then when they backfilled the hole, the stone just packed in there and they had no sewer service. So we had to dig up it by the front in the middle of the yard, take it out to the street, into the street. Brubacher was there because they were who put the water main in, and Aqua was there just overseeing. And then the township and Aqua or Brubacher knows the township will be submitting an invoice to Brubacher for all the man hours and equipment that was on the site as well as materials.
That's a really important update. The responsible party will be reimbursing us for our expenses in doing that work.
Right. And this morning we had they're getting ready to do the bittersweet development, which is Heather and Clover. And we had a pre-construction meeting, which usually just the superintendent show up, but I had them bring all their employees who will be working on the job. And I explained to them that this will not happen again.
Good. Thank you for being on top of that, as always. All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
John, second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed, no. We're nothing. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Mark
everybody.
Miller.
Good evening.
Thanks for all your
Mark
work.
Miller. hang
Yes,
out.
sir. Yes, sir.
I just want to ask, how's your son doing?
Good. He's back at work.